I got Jesus. I've got all that I could ever need.
Look at this. Somebody come look at this. Look at this. Somebody come and look at this. Look at this.
You know, it's really sad that, every nation has their own God, and their God looks just like them. You see, the East Indian man, he has Krishna. The Chinese man, he has Buddha. His God looks like him. But for some reason, blacks and Hispanics, our God looks like the same man that oppressed us, had us in captivity. That's very strange when you think about it. There's something wrong with that. Now let's go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 48. Because it seems like every time I run across one of these videos, where the sister is hugged up with Caesar Borgia. That's right, his name is Caesar Borgia. Look it up. He was a homo, he committed incest with his sister. That's who you hugged up with. He was a murderer. You hugged up with the devil. But it's always our sisters, it seems like that. When I scroll through TikTok, they hugged up with Caesar Borgia. Look, Deuteronomy 28:48 says, "Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee." The Most High sent the white man against us, and you hugged up with him. In hunger and in thirst and in nakedness, we had to serve him. We had to go to him for a job, if we want food and clothes, a roof over our head. And in want of all things, if you want a birth certificate, you want a passport to get out of the country, you see, we got to go to our oppressor. We got to go to our enemies to get these things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. When you are destroyed as a people, you will worship your oppressor. You see, you will worship those people that oppressed you and had you in slavery. You see, and then they can take the yoke of iron off your neck. You see. Now let's go to the book of Revelation. Revelation is the revealing of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. You see, that is what Revelations mean, the revealing of the Messiah, the black Messiah. So when we go to verse 11, it says, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou seest, write in a book. So a lot of Christians will say it doesn't matter, what his skin looked like. They say he was a spirit, he was multicolored. They even say he's a Middle Eastern now. All these years they've been having a white man's image, and now all of a sudden he's Middle Eastern. But in the book, it says he's a black man. So who are you hugged up with? So Messiah said, what you see is, John, write it in a book. So it matters the true image of Christ, the true image of the Messiah. Let's go to verse 14. It says, his head and his hairs were white like wool. So Christ had woolly hair. And I know you apologists say, well, that's describing the color. It's not describing the texture. But, they could have said white like snow. They could have said white like rice. They could have said anything. Wool comes in different colors. It comes in brown, black, not just white. But it says his hair was white and like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass. When you look at brass, it is a derivative of brown, as if they burn in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So Christ was a black man, you see. So let's get what his father looked like, because you apologists, you hate yourselves, you hate your black people, and you will say that this is describing color and not the texture. Let's go to Book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 9. It says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit. The Ancient of Days, Yahweh, the Christ's father, Yahweh Shai's father. The Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. Like the pure wool. So, black people have woolly hair. Most High was a black man. Messiah was a black man. Is a black man, rather. So, we have to put down these false images. We had to put down Caesar Borgia. In the last days, we have to realize that we're the chosen people of the Most High. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American people. You see, most of the Messiah is coming back to save his people. He's not coming back for everyone. That's why they changed his skin color. You see? So that was to deceive the very elect. Shalom.